Turn back the years to 1898, the year of Remember the Maine of San Juan Hill and of rumors of a strange new contraption, a horseless carriage. In the little town of Warren, Ohio, the Opera House has announced the showing of one of these newfangled moving pictures. Two of the business leaders of Warren were the Packard brothers, J.W. Seated and W.D., successful manufacturers of electrical equipment. Now and then, through the streets of Warren, would chug one of these new gasoline buggies. On hearing that they were made in Cleveland by a man named Winton, J.W. sets out to buy one. How happily he started on that 60-mile return trip. For a few miles, that is. But oh, the inglorious arrival in Warren, when after a series of breakdowns, he was finally towed the rest of the way by a team of farm horses. For days, J.W. tinkered with the innards of that car. Out of these probings, he made a number of important discoveries and decided to go back and tell Mr. Winton, as one engineer to another, how he can improve his car. Maybe Mr. Winton's day had gotten off to a bad start. Anyway, his reaction is curt.
Listen, Packard, if you're so smart, why don't you build a better machine yourself?
This certainly wasn't the response J.W. had expected, but its results launched a new epoch in personal transportation.
Well, Mr. Winton, I think I'll do just that.
Setting aside a corner of his electrical equipment plant, Packard and a few associates started drafting their new automobile. And then November 9th, 1899, the first Packard maneuvers the streets of Warren among interested neighbors, frightened horses, and delighted small boys. It was a single cylinder with starting crank on the side, with a shovel-handled grip on the steering tiller. Friends of the Packard brothers insisted that they build machines for them, too. So almost before they knew it, they found themselves building automobiles under the name of the Ohio Automobile Company. Let's take a closer look at our Model A. It has 3 speeds forward and 1 reverse. It's a sharper-looking job than any machine heretofore. And here's the payoff. It sold for $1,250. In 1900, they held an automobile show in Madison Square Garden, New York. Here is the Packard exhibit. The new model had the same chassis as the 1899 number, plus a dos-a-dos seat. That means back-to-back. The back-seat passengers might not know where they were going, but they could sure see where they had been. Evidently, that dos-a-dos stuff didn't go with the young bloods of that day, because the very next year, the rear seat is turned around and elevated. Note the new steering wheel, which has replaced the tiller. Packard was the first to go to a steering wheel. 5 Packards like this were entered in the great endurance race, all the way from New York to Buffalo. This is the finish line in Buffalo. Less than half of the 89 entries completed the race, but all 5 Packards finish among the leaders. Another body type this year was this touring model with the rear entrance tonneau and tete-a-tete seats. This same year, a Warren man by the name of Alden S. Murty becomes nationally famous. He is arrested for driving his Packard at the scandalous speed of 40 miles an hour. The date is now 1902. J.W. Secretary enters his office.
Here, Mr. Packard, is a letter from a man who wants information about the dependability of Packard cars.
Well, we have no sales literature, you know that, and we're all too busy to write him these details.
But what am I going to tell him? I have to tell him something.
Oh, tell him to ask the man who owns one.
Ask the man who owns one. The birth of a slogan not only destined to become one of the best known, but the most challenging slogan in all advertising. Not only to the world, but a daily challenge to us in every new Packard we build. This was the house that served as the office of the Ohio Automobile Company. But in 1903, the directors decided to move the plant to Detroit, which was even then beginning to emerge as an industrial center. Although J.W. maintained his home in Warren, as an officer of the company, he was naturally a frequent Detroit visitor. Here he is, making the trip in one of the early custom models. The name, too, was changed to the Packard Motor Car Company, and the new factory was built in open country on the outskirts of the city. This, the original office building, was completed in 1904 and was the first industrial...